of the front of the car all cut out now, so what we're going to be doing is making the main hoop, which will be a rectangle shape that goes in there. And also some little braces that go up there on an angle, and you've got to mount the headlights off and the front guards. Here's the main hoop, so we'll be finishing it off properly later. Be recessing them like how we done the engine mounts. So what happened there was I had it too far forward, it was just guesswork, and the bonnet striker was hitting here, so we had to move it back a bit. Now the bonnet striker just clears it by mil, so happy with that. So what else is there? We got that little, you might notice that little bit of an overhang there. This is how it was with the factory Altezza dimensions. So it came out a little bit there before it went up onto an angle. So next up is to make those bits there. Now we're up to making the angle. So instead of having a really harsh angle like that, we'll make a nice little radius. How we measure out our radius is really easy. So you basically just make it the width of the material you're going to be joining. So you can see there, you just draw in a slight radius. So what we'll do, we end up cutting that section out and tapping it around. Hopefully that makes sense. So now it's got to put a little bit more radius on, tap that around, weld it together, good to go. We've got these sections here all done now. Put the riv nuts in. What the riv nuts are basically like a rivet with a thread in them. So for these M6 riv nuts, you end up doing an 8.5mm clearance hole for this insert to go in, and then you squeeze the, basically like you say, literally like a rivet gun, squeeze it together, and it splays it out underneath, and it bites to the material here, and that's how they stay in there. So yeah, really handy. Pep showed us that little trick years ago. Never knew about them, wish I did earlier. But anyhow, it's going to go like that. Roughly, there's obviously no gap, and those riv nuts go there. They land bang on, so real happy with that. Time to weld them on. We now have the main frame all tacked up. You can sort of see it taking shape. The radiuses look quite nice compared to a real hard, sharp angle. So most people wouldn't even notice it. It looks quite deceiving. It actually angles up that way and also back that way. It all looks pretty flat. So all in all, pretty happy with the results in the end. Obviously only that one muck up where I had it too far forward, and when I had the bonnet down, the striker was hitting here, so I had to push it back that much, and now the striker cleared, so that's going to be good. We can mount the bonnet catch on there, so now we won't have to be running bonnet pins. We've now got our datum points, the center of each item, so now we're going to make the mount for the intercooler and radiator. So to go up that way, back down to that center, back up, and back up this way, and then a bridge across the top. Should be pretty strong and hold it all in. We've cut the 5 pieces out with 45-degree angles on each end, so it's now time to tack them up. Ready to tack the top bridge on, and that's it. Just got this little offcut down here, keep everything running nice and true. Here's the top section all tacked up. Time to go put it onto the car and see if it's all going to work. So here goes our top mount. So what we're going to be doing next is we just tacked it together obviously and just got it sitting in place to make sure it's going to work and land exactly where we want it, which it does. So next thing is to obviously weld it out. Then we've got to drill the holes for the bolts. They'll be recessed yet again like that. So we'll do the bolts here, and then next I've got to machine some spacers up that will weld directly to the intercooler and radiator also, and that there will be the thread that we screw the bolts into. So pretty happy with the design. I've never seen anything like it before. When I build stuff, I don't look to Instagram or Google for inspiration. I just think of things out in my head and know whatever I think of is going to be different to the next. It's yeah, I don't really build things to see if other people like it or not. I just do things, yeah. Basically, the design too, it's just, yeah, I can't really explain it, but basically the whole aspect of this car is basically my personality yet again. It's the engineering coming out of me, like. So what we've done, we've drilled the holes out. I didn't have a 16.5mm drill bit, so I'll just quickly open it up with a die grinder. Then these little sleeves will pop in there. Keep everything nice and recessed. You know, you probably could get away with just leaving the hole open, but you just know inside you haven't done a job properly, so, you know, see, look like that. That's it nice and flush. So the inside diameter of these sleeves is 14.4, so we'll machine the outside diameter of these cap screw heads down to around 14.2, 14 mil. Here we have it easier, so we end up taking 0.2 off, so 14.2 for the bolts and 14.4 the inside diameter of the sleeve gives us 0.2 clearance. Next up we're using a little countersink bit. What that does there, it puts a nice little chamfer on the inside of that hole. We now have this section done. That's probably taken me about 3 hours. This is way too long, but anyhow. Everything's looking good. The chamfers are all even. You can't really see them through the camera, but so all you do is set a stop limit on the drill, so the countersink only comes down to a certain depth on every single one, so then they're all even. And it's a nice little press fit. Check that out. Done. Here we have it all jigged up, sitting in place, ready to tack it in. That section there is now tacked on. That took way longer than it should have. It took longer than making this whole big frame. It takes a while doing all the recess, all those little details of the bolts, but that's what they'll look like. Nice like that. So anyhow, what we're up to next is we need to make basically like a basket style. It'll all be connected to this main frame. We'll do some mounts off the chassis rail there as well. Come down here, and that's where the bottom of the intercooler and the radiator will mount to. So this whole section here, in effect, if you wanted to, not that I have no need to, but that there is all removable, so you can pull the whole lot out with the intercooler and radiator all stuck to it. So now we're up to doing the lower half. So what we'll be doing is mounting a bit of angle underneath the chassis rail, so it keeps it all seamless and clean, so you can't see anything when you're looking down through the engine bay. Then we'll mount our box section off there across that side, maybe a couple of supports that way, but we'll just make it up as we go. So I took all those bits off the chassis rail, I had to drill out the spot weld, so we'll fill them up with the welder later on. So what we've done there, we'll put some plates in there, so I've got a bolt that way and two going up that way, held in by riv nuts. We have that lower support, so what we've done is cut them on 45 so there's no open ends and it's all sealed off. Looks nice. Time to tack it all up, put it into the car. Here goes the frame basically all done now. We'll do the final weld out later on once we've mounted up the intercooler and radiator. So what's next is we've got to do the weld on bosses for the heat exchangers. And I think I've got this stuff here. It's about 1 inch. So as you can see, it's a little bit too wide. So what we'll do, we'll turn this down the same dimension as that. I think it's about 19 to 20 mil, but we'll measure it soon. So yeah, that's what we're up to next. What we're going to be doing now is machining up the weld-on bosses for the radiator and intercooler. This is the reason why I wanted to make my own bungs. As you can see, if you look down on here, you won't be able to see it past the box section, whereas if I use these ones here, ones I brought, they overhang. They say no one would even notice these type of things, but yeah, I think the overall picture, once you see this car, it'll all make sense. Here we have the oil coolers all set up, just an extension off that main frame we made. So all we did was make this main bar here, goes into the end of the chassis rail. We've also got to add some brackets shortly to go from here onto there. That'll make it nice and strong, and we can also mount a tow eye off that. As for the oil coolers, it's made obviously an extension leg off there. Pretty simple, a couple of flat bars on there, and a radius just to mount to match the weld-on bung. Pretty simple setup. We won't be leaving those as a blunt end like that. We'll be doing a taper and capping them off, or think of some other design later on just to make it look a little bit nicer. So next up, we're going to be mounting the bonnet latch over here somewhere. So what we'll be using is something like that, put an angle, and that angle will go from there, we'll support down to that middle bar there. And once that's all set up, we can then set up the headlights and mount our bumper, and that'll be this whole support frame all done basically. Here goes our bracket roughly shaped out, as you can see, look quite nice. Now we need to weld it onto the frame. Bonnet latch brackets all tacked on now, so now we've got to decide whether I want to go from there straight down to there, or if we're going to do some little angles up that way. That way there will spread the load a lot better, but this thing is so solid at the moment, it's unreal. So we can probably get away with just going across there, but we'll soon see. We'll try and figure something out. Here goes the side brackets all done now. So just need a couple of bolts either side and that'll finish up this whole front bar. So what we need to do now is mount the headlights, and still debating what to do with this bonnet latch thing. Just bent up a couple of 90s, so what we're going to do here is we will drill this out, put it in there, weld it on, and then this will go over to these holes here. So that's for the headlight and the bumper, but as you see that one's broken, so not too sure what I'm going to do with the headlights. I might run none at all, so I might just use the housing and that's really it. So yeah, not too sure what we're going to do, but for the now it'll be enough to mount them anyway. So here we have it, pretty simple. Had to bend it a bit more than a 90, got the hole a little bit offset. So basically it's just a bit of tube and flattened it out with a hammer. Lens. Bang on where we need to be. Here goes the headlights all mounted along with the bumper, as the bumper utilises those mounts there, and on the underside of the front guard, and the other mounting point for these headlights are going to be on the back side of this guard. So yeah, got a lot more done than I was expecting this week. But it just dawned on me when I was standing here looking at the engine bay before, and I was thinking, check that out, that's a pretty cool engine bay, and the fact there's basically not a lot more going into this engine. All we're missing is some coils and leads and a catch can that goes up there, and the only other thing you're going to see is one fuel line going from there and around. The regulator is going to be hidden, everything else is going to be hidden. As I said, there's no water pump, that's hidden, as well as even the turbo feed. So I'm going to run it up here and tuck it up tidy around the back. I'm going to make my own little adapter there that's going to run the oil cooler line, because we're going to have the hidden oil filter, and it'll feed on the back there instead of running an ugly one that everyone loops across there. So it should be real tidy how they should be. Roughly put the bumper on, and pretty happy with this left hand side alignment. As for this side here, you can see there's a bit of a gap right up there, so a bit of fine tuning and we should get it. So pretty happy, considering, you know, this whole front where that holds the bonnet, the bumper, lights, everything, all of that was just made up out of fresh air, because I just cut it out and just started making it to suit. So I think it's not too bad. Obviously the bumper or the bonnet needs a bit more adjusting, but yeah, pretty happy with that.